Moving right along, I want to show you one of the new powerful features of Liquid Edition version 6.0. If I come over here to my sequence rack, you can see here's the What's New sequence, which is what we're working on. I can tell that this is the sequence I'm working on by casting my eyes to the upper right corner of my master viewer. You can see there's the What's New. That is the name of the current sequence. If I click on this list, left click, you can see here are the other options available to me. 16 by 9. I wonder what that's all about. Well, let's see if I click on it. Hey, look at that. Everything just changed to 16 by 9. And I didn't have to go into the system settings under the control panel to make it happen. And let me just play this back. Hey, look at that. That's 16 by 9. In the same project as my 4 by 3 stuff. Holy cow. But wait, there's more. If I come up here again and I change to, HDV, look at that. What happens? It's blank. Let me drag some footage over there. I'll grab some of my Sequoia footage. This is 16 by 9 footage. And look at that. It automatically adjusts my 16 by 9 Ntsc video and fits it into the HDV window. Now, what are the properties of the HDV window, I wonder? Well, how would we tell that? Well, we either come down here to our timeline, we right-click and go to Timeline Properties, or if I come up to the upper right corner and click on my Properties window, I can also access the Timeline Properties. Hey, this is new. And before we actually take a look at this, let me create a new sequence just to show you what happens when I create a new sequence. Well, if you remember, when you used to click on the New Sequence button, it would just open up a blank sequence, and that was that. Now when I click on this, it requires a few things from me. For example, a name of a sequence. I'm going to call this HDV2. And notice there's also an auto increment option over here now. And then layout template. Let's take a look here what the choices are default. Okay, so I haven't created any other layout templates as of yet. But notice down here, the preset I'm in right now is 1080 60i. So that's a 1080 HDV window with a 60 frame interlaced option. But if I click on this window, holy moly, look at all the choices now. That's amazing. Now let's take a look at this really quickly. PAL, 16 by 9 and 4 by 3, Ntsc, 4 by 3 and 16 by 9, a whole slew of 720 HDVs, a couple of HDV 1080i's, and then if I scroll down the list here, you can see there's all kinds of different frame rates. 24p! Hey, that's what people have been asking for. So you can see the choices are huge and quite numerous. So you can see there's a lot of options here, and we'll work with those as we go. But let's just work with this guy. You can also see I can choose which render codec I'm going to use, and in this case I would want to use this because this is the setting for HDV. However, there are all kinds of options, including uncompressed HD. And if I come over here and turn on the Advanced tab, it starts to melt your brain as to the options. I can dial in the individual frame rate. I can come over here and change the size of the screen and make it all specific to what I want it to be. So pretty amazing stuff. But again, just a quick overview here. We'll talk more about that. So there's my HDV2. Let me drag some footage over. And again, it automatically scales the footage to fit inside that particular window. So let me go back up to HDV and let's look at the properties of that one very quickly. Let's change it from 1080i to 720 and see what happens. And now you can see it changes the screen size. That's based on the queue. Let me go back to the setting I had. There we go. And so now you can see the 720p is a little bit different from the 1080i. So what's really exciting here is based on the size of my sequence, the timeline setup, the screen size that I use, it's going to adjust the video to fit. So what would happen if I drag some 4x3 video into this 16 by 9 timeline? Well, let's find out. Here's some 4x3. There's an Aussie cow standing in a field. Look at that. It automatically puts black bars on the right and left sides. So it's a reverse letterbox. So the 4x3 maintains its aspect ratio within the 16 by 9 sequence. So if I were to record out the tape, it's going to record out as a 16 by 9 timeline, and it's automatically going to adjust this video for me. Pretty amazing stuff. So while you weren't looking, I renamed my sequences, the HDV 1080i, I renamed that appropriately, and the 720p gave that a name as well. So here we are. If we look at the upper right of our master viewer, there's the HDV 1080, and there's my 16:9 image automatically being scaled to fit the 1080i window. And then if I move over here, and let me zoom in a little bit on my timeline using my keyboard shortcuts, there's the 4:3 Ntsc video fitting into the 1080i window. But look over here, there's this PAL. What does that mean? PAL. If I double click on that, there's the footage. Lovely beach footage. Yep, okay. So I'm just going to click, drag, and drop that across. So there's my footage. Let me right click on that, and let's just check the properties real quick. Okay, 4 gigs, AVI, DV, 25 megabits per second, 4:3, 720 by 576. 25 frames per second? What the heck is that? Wait, film is 24 frames per second. What's 25 frames per second? Oh, look. CCIR PAL. PAL. So this means I can incorporate PAL into this same timeline, right? Because it's happening. It's right there. There's my 16:9. There's my 4:3 Ntsc. Hey, look at that. There's my PAL. All playing together happily in a 1080i HD window. And if I had some 1080i footage to use, it would also play back in this same timeline. So what's great about this is, as I play through this, you can see how these are all scaled to fit that window. And when I export out the tape, they're all going to remain in that position. Now I could go in, right-click, and go into Properties and say, you know what, I want to fit to, keep the aspect ratio. And now it fits to that 1080i window. It's not going to look as good because I'm taking something that's about half the size and stretching it, doubling it in size. It's like zooming in on a picture. I'm zooming in 200% here, at least, to fill that window. So it's not going to look as good, but I can make that happen, just like that. So there's a lot of opportunities here for us to mix and match different, not only screen sizes. Now we have the ability to transcode PAL into Ntsc, and we have the ability to take Ntsc and transcode it into PAL. So taking this one step further, let me step back to my HDV 720 timeline. And now this timeline is in the 720p aspect ratio. And you notice that now this PAL video fills up the screen a little more than it did. Again, because the 720p is a smaller screen than the 1080i. It's a considerably different screen size. But what I want to show you is some footage, some HDV 720 footage that's available on your Discovering Liquid Edition disc. So this HDV 720p footage that you can see right here in my rack is available to you on your Discovering Liquid Edition bonus DVD. And to get to it, I right-click in the empty contents area of that rack, go up to Import Media Clip, and here it is. It's actually sitting on my H drive, which is my external DVD burner. And if I go to Sample Videos, HDV, there it is. The M2V files are the ones we're looking for. So I'd only want to choose those. I can Control-click on each one of them. And now if I hit Open, it would import them. Now I need to make sure that I'm in media file action of copy as opposed to link. If I link to it, it's just going to import it into the project, but it's going to leave the media sitting on the DVD. So if I were to remove that disk, then I lose the link to the actual media. And it may not be able to play back the video file without dropping frames, so I'm definitely going to copy. And then I would hit Open. But I've already done that, so I'm just going to cancel out of it. Now if I double click on this, ooh, look, it fills the screen. Let me rewind to the beginning, hit play. Very nice. So I have some 16:9 Ntsc 16:9 footage on this timeline. Let me drag over the HD footage, put it right next to it. And then, you know what? I'll go back and get that cow standing out in the field in Australia. There we go. Look at that. It's all playing back without rendering. Notice the background rendering is not happening. It's on idle. And then I'll go to my PAL, click, drag, drop. When I drag a video clip onto the track mapped with the video to receive the video if I were to use the insert source into master, when I drag the clip over, and let me do it as I talk, I'll delete that, grab the file, And now if I drag it over here, you can see the outline of the clip. It's just the video with the audio buried underneath. But if I move it down here, now you can see it's expanding or disbanding the video and audio. I let go. There's the audio automatically disbanded to the Stereo 1 audio track, automatically. So that's something new in version 6.1. But back to the original concept of there's 16:9 NTSC, there's HDV 720, there's 4:3 NTSC, and here is PAL 4:3, all playing back on the same timeline without having to render, I might add. All living quite happily, and because this timeline is set up as 720p HDV, it's all going to go out to an HDV device in the formats that we're seeing here on the screen, all set up automatically for us. So there you go. So that's one of the new, very powerful, fantastic features about Liquid Edition version 6. Now, one last thought on the whole concept of multi-format timelines. This timeline I set up as 720p. What if I needed to go out to, say, NTSC 4:3? Well, let's give it a try. I'm going to right-click on my timeline here, go to Timeline Properties. There is the preset of my timeline, 720 30 frame P, progressive. I'm going to come up here to NTSC 4:3, and let's just see if this works. I think it might. So if I scrub through, there's my 16:9 NTSC footage. There's my 720p, looks kind of zoomed in. There's my 4:3 NTSC, and there's my PAL. All playing back on the same timeline, but these two guys have lost their aspect ratio. You can see that the black bars that would normally be at the top and the bottom of a 16:9 image in a 4:3 window are not there. The image is stretching the entire height of our 4:3 image. So let me do this. Let me right-click on the clip, go to Properties, and then what I'm looking for, there's the 16:9 in the aspect ratio, but you can see there's no scale on here. If I choose Fit Largest, Keep Aspect Ratio, it's going to fit that window, but it's going to keep its aspect ratio. And now there is the letterboxing that I was talking about, the 16:9 letterboxing. So now that looks just great, but this does not. Our 720p footage is way too big for this 4:3 window. So let me right-click again on the clip, go to Properties, and now you can see, there it is. It's 16:9, but it's 1280 by 720. That's the screen size of the video in the computer world. Whereas 4:3 NTSC video is 720 by 480. So let's change that to Fit Largest, Keep Aspect Ratio. And now it is automatically fitting to the window we need it to. So you can see the incredible power available to me here. Now, instead of changing this timeline from 720 to 4:3 NTSC, what I could have done was come up here to the upper right corner, saved a copy of that sequence, and we'll call this Demo 4:3. And now I will go to the sequence rack, open up the Demo 4:3. So that one is in 4:3. I can double check that by right-clicking, going to Timeline Properties, 4:3. There it is. 720 by 486, excuse me. Not 720 by 480. So let me go back to my original HDV 720. And now I will just right-click again on the timeline, the empty timeline. If I were to right-click on a clip, it brings up this menu. However, I wanted to right-click here. And again, I can come up here to the Properties window, go to Timeline Properties. And now I want to change this back to what it was originally, which was HDV 720 30p. Click OK. And now we're back in business the way we were. So we've got our original 720 timeline. So I could output this timeline to my 720p HDV camera. And then I can go over to the Demo 4:3 version. And the only difference here, the clips are all the same. The only difference is the screen aspect ratio is now NTSC 4:3. So I could take this out, say, to a DVD to play back on a regular NTSC here in North America. Or let's say I wanted to take a version of this out to PAL. Well, let's see. Can I make a copy of this? Save copy of a sequence. I'll call this PAL. Let's open up the PAL version. Double click on it. There it is. Now I want to change the properties of this to PAL. So I go up to Timeline Properties. And can I change it here? No, I can't. So what I really need to do instead is I will zoom out on my timeline here. I will just highlight everything in this case. I will right click and choose Copy Selected Clips. Then I'll come up here and I will start a new sequence. I will choose the PAL preset setting 4x3. Call this PAL. Say OK. Now we have 2 PALs. It used the auto increment function to name this PAL2. So I'll just delete the first one, the one that wasn't working for us. So here I am in my PAL timeline. I can right click and double check the properties. There it is, PAL 4x3, 720 by 576, 25 frames per second. So I know it's PAL. Close that down. Now the quick way to get my 720p project into a PAL wrapper would be to click, drag, and drop that sequence right into this sequence. And there it is. There's the HDV 720p sequence. Let me just scrub through it. There's the 16:9 footage. Oop, there's the 720. There's the Ntsc. And notice now, around the Ntsc, there are black bars because Ntsc is 720 wide by 486 tall. Whereas PAL is 576 tall. So there's about 100 lines difference there almost. So let me right click, and this has been containerized because I drug a sequence over into another sequence. Let me step into the container. I will right click on this guy, go to Properties, go to Scale, Fit Largest Aspect, OK. There we go. Let me go back to the main sequence level. And there is everything fitting quite nicely into a PAL wrapper. So if I were to export this out to tape, it's going to go out as PAL.